So I wanted to do a video. This one is going to be on colorism versus featurism. Why not? So basically, I kind of just wanted to talk in general. This is exactly why when I talk about colorism, it's always like, well, it's not in the way that people are expecting. And I think the reason why is different facial structures basically going on there. I've said it. Sometimes people treat me differently because of just me. Well, anyway, there's a lot of people that look like this, for example, who I've always noticed if they're light-skinned or my color, like that, brown-skinned, and they specifically have, broader features. And with that being said, not just broader features, but I think also being less attractive on top of it, but being my complexion or lighter, they tend to be a little bit more angry, I think, about their phenotype in comparison to other people. And I think the reason why is because of the people that I'm posting. See, this lady doesn't look anything like the other people I posted. See, these other people that I posted don't have light skin, okay? Many of them have dark skin, brown skin, light skin for a black person. I did basically put different complexions in, but the same phenotype. You see, these people that have this phenotype don't have the phenotype of that black lady who was brown skinned. Instead, they have much, more narrow features and smaller features. Keyword small. I don't really think narrow. Narrow's more Eurocentric, so to speak. A lot of the time, these type of people, I think, get treated a certain way because of their facial features. And then they get angry because they're lighter and they think it's gonna be something for them that they're lighter, but then at the same time, they're still seen as black, while someone who is much darker isn't seen as black at all, basically. As you can see, the black people with a black phenotype like hers, broader phenotype, tend to seem to have a similar phenotype to her. And I'll show a photo of her darker skin too. I like to alter the photos, show her dark skin to see how the commonality is between the two. Just so people can understand what I'm talking about here. And I feel like that's why they get very bitter. Now, people always say that dark-skinned women are very bitter and angry and upset about being darker-skinned. And I can't say that that isn't true for some colorism crybabies. That is true. It's just not been my personal experience. What has been my experience is this kind of situation where people who are jealous and angry are the specific people say shouldn't be jealous. They should be benefiting from some type of colorism. But instead, no, they're sitting being bitter and angry and jealous because they don't like how they look. And I mean, like, wouldn't they like how they looked if colorism benefited them? But I think no. Mostly, when you think of it, when you think of society, and I've shown this before, on how a lot of light-skinned people are pressured to look like other races, If you look in the hip-hop community, for example, you'll see lots of people who are pushed to look like that tan blonde. I can name a few. Saweetie, Cardi B, Mulatto, a lot of people, basically. And some people, I think, accomplish the look better than others, And, so it's not really seen as a big thing, but like I said, that whole look is promoted among lighter skinned women. You'll see darker skinned women free to be themselves, but lighter skinned women are always pushed into a box to not be themselves. And so then that's where more of the bitterness comes from, because they spend all this time trying so hard to look like the people I posted that are their complexion but have a whole different phenotype to them. And then they get mad at the people who can easily do it, and they get mad at the people who have more of a propensity to do it just naturally. And it bothers them more even when those very people are darker skinned, because they're thinking their lighter skin should help them, but it doesn't. So that's where my problem with featurism usually comes into play. It's usually not specifically about skin tone. Now, I understand someone with this lady's phenotype who's darker skinned. I don't know the dynamic there. I really don't. I see that there are colorism crybabies, so I'm not saying that some people can act jealous of, like they can't act jealous over people's skin tone. They can for being lighter, and they can for being darker too. I am more of the type that will try to see things both ways. I do not just try to see things through one lens, basically, especially when it comes to colorism. I mean, I'm brown skinned after all. I'm not dark skinned, not light skinned. I like to see it both ways. I don't take either side. But that's a major thing. What I'm trying to say here is featurism to me is the main decider. I don't feel colorism decides anything, because if colorism decided anything, then wouldn't the darkest, at least the darkest of black people, be relegated to black people? But it's not. You see, when we're talking about skin tone of black people, every skin tone of a black person is shared by a person who is not black at all. Let that sink in. So, what is making black people become and be seen as black, and what is making the people that share our complexion not black? It's specifically the facial features. Now, even when your facial features look to some extent African, if they aren't strongly African, that will be a benefit more than another person's sometimes when it comes to racial designation, because racial designation is defined by facial features. Therefore, in some cases, when you're defined as Indian, if you're defined as Asian, if you're defined as black, if you're defined as Middle Eastern, that's what you're defined as racially. So you are going to be treated like that. Therefore, you are going to miss out on some racial, racist, basically, stereotypes and, oppressions that have to do with black people. So then lighter skinned black people, who are always treated like black people, get mad at the people who don't look like them. And they get especially mad at the people who are darker than them, because it's a sense of jealousy, and then they're mad that their light skin didn't do anything for them. So that's generally my experience. And I also honestly feel like with light skin movements and platforms, they can never have phenotypes that include all types of phenotypes, because one phenotype will attack the other phenotype. And it's usually not the one with the smaller features. It just isn't. It tends to be the one that thinks they have the bad end of the stick, but they don't really have a bad end of the stick. I mean, honestly, the way I feel about people who have Afrocentric features who are lighter skinned is kind of like how I honestly feel about being not dark skinned, basically. Being a lighter brown complexion. It's always been where You always feel like what I described before, where you can't just be yourself kind of like thing, but not just be yourself, but like you can't, how do I explain it? You can't be as good, basically, as the one who has all the features that connects back, basically, to the idea of a black person. So, like a black woman and a black man, they are dark skinned to the idea of people, what people think of with a black man and a black woman. Basically, what comes to mind is a dark skinned woman, a dark skinned man, with certain features and certain hair. When you have a missing feature like lighter skin, whether you have brown skin or light skin, to me, from my perspective, it's like you're missing something. Especially if you're a woman. If you're a man, it's kind of just like whatever. I'm not particularly attracted to men with that type of phenotype. I just do not. Because for me, I don't want children. I don't really prefer to have children that would have features like that. I wouldn't. I would prefer my child to look like me, and I always feel like if someone's features were bigger than mine, that they would basically dominate my phenotype. This is the same thing I feel with people who are darker than me. If you are darker than me, I kind of feel like you are going to dominate my phenotype. And you have to understand, for me, I'm egocentric. Now, you could be upset and mad at me and go, you're ugly and all pissed off at me. I don't care. I want children that look like me, sweetie. Sorry. It's just what it is. I would prefer to have children that look like me. Sorry. It's just the truth. I don't want them to look like anyone else. And I think it's natural for people who are healthy in the mind to think that they should have children with people who will give them children that will look like them, possibly. This is why people are attracted to people that are similar to them, because they want to procreate, they want to reproduce their own image. That's my personal preference. I want to see myself in my own kids. I would not want to see harder features like that in my kids. I just wouldn't. So, personally, for me, I would never prefer a black man who was my color, light skinned, could be as light as Delonte West for all I care, and have very broad features like that. One, anyway, I kind of find broad features to be feminine because my mother had more Afrocentric features, high cheekbones, full lips, no brow ridge, almond-shaped eyes, and a soft round nose. Not a big nose like that, like not a hard nose, but a soft round nose, kind of like Brandy's, for example, or Gabrielle Union's. They have small, soft, round noses, basically. Very pretty noses. And so, that would not be my preference, really. My father had sharper features, so that's what I prefer. Now, I'm showing here specifically how I specifically am more focused on, I guess, features than anything. See how these men don't share her features. They're naturally lighter than her. I would consider them all light skinned. Maybe one was my complexion, I think. But as you can tell, even if I paint them darker, they're still going to look not black because their features don't look black. When I paint them white, they actually look like white people or very fair-skinned Hispanics. And that's what I prefer because I'm more featured. I have that preference in feature because my father's side, my father had much sharper features. He had sharper features than, yeah, he just had sharp features. So for me, that's why I see that as masculinity, you know. And when I say sharp, I don't mean hard. I mean like sharp, kind of like narrow and to the point, basically. Um, Now, here's another thing I wanted to talk about specifically with that individual was they, I think, honestly, they have a different preference and interest in black men. That's because dark skinned, unambiguous black men look just like this person. They're just not dark skinned. But other than that, if you look at them as a darker skinned woman, if you see the photo that I put in here, you would recognize that she would be no different than her dark skinned black male counterpart. While with what I've shown, you can see that I've shown men that I prefer would have still a very pointed look, a more sharp look, even if they were dark skinned. The only thing with me on dark skinned men who have more sharp, keen features is that their features are what I'm attracted to, but um, they're not attractive because of their body to me. I don't like the color of their body parts down there, and I don't. I think it looks like feces, let's just be real. And I think that when I look at their skin, I think of my mother. So, I mean, like, I can't sexualize that really. Um, but that's a major thing with me, is that's why I don't really have an interest in black men like that. Like, for her, she does seem to care about black men and what they say and what they think and all this stuff. She loves black men like that. But I don't love black men like that. I mean, like, I care about them as my people, just like I care about black women as my people, but not like in a sexual sense. I don't care what, black men think of me in that way. And most of the time, when they do care and they like me or they have those kinds of feelings towards me, it's uncomfortable for me. And I like to shut it down and make them hate me right away. If they hate me already, that's great too. You know, I'm not looking for black men to be interested in me. I really am not. And that's one thing. I'm not interested in them and I'm not hating them. And, you know, on YouTube, you know how that works. There's a lot of people who hate them, love them, are only with them or love them, but still hate them at the same time. Weird mixes like that. But me, I don't really have that. I just am like, I'm not attracted to them because I don't like certain things about darker skinned black men, whether they have sharp features or they have broad features, you know. But I'm not going to hate them. And I know I have a particular black type of man that I'm attracted to, and that's only ones that are caramel, that are caramel or light skinned and have narrower, keener features. So that's just how my preference is, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.